The year was 1974. It was a troubled era of violence and unrest in America. One day in February of that year, a devastating drama began to unfold. A 19-year-old heiress was brutally kidnapped by a psychotic band of terrorists. She was held captive in a closet for 60 days, and in the process she was transformed into an urban terrorist who helped to hold up a bank and shoot at security guards. Finally, she was captured by the FBI, and she was sentenced to 7 years in prison. But what was she guilty of? Nobody would believe that a frail 19-year-old girl had been brainwashed by clever manipulations. Finally, President Jimmy Carter commuted her sentence and she walked free. Soon to become an Irish citizen, she has made her first visit to Ireland, specially to appear on Kenny Live. Will you welcome, please, with Mr. Bernard Shaw, her husband, Miss Patty Hearst. You've got a great name, Bernard Shaw, a famous name, but you're not connected with the playwright as far as we know.
No.
Patty, you're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
Tell us, first of all, how did you two meet?
Well, Bernie was working on the security detail with my family, and that's how we met.
That was after your great adventure.
Yes.
And how quickly did security become something else between you?
Not that quickly. For a while, he was, kind of following me around on dates, and then it started switching.
All right, he became the date.
He became the date.
All right. Take us back to pre-1974. I've mentioned you're an heiress from the famous Hearst family. What sort of a kid were you in those days?
I was going to the University of California, and I think I was just a pretty average 19-year-old. I wasn't politically active or anything on campus. There had been a lot of riots and protests, but that was years earlier, and I thought it was, all finished.
Okay, well, as a person, though, were you a spoiled brat because you'd come from a family with lots of money? Did you have a strict upbringing? Did you have a religious upbringing?
Well, my mother is a very strict Catholic, and I had a Catholic upbringing, and we had 5 daughters in the family, so she had, I think, every single problem that a parent could have with daughters, for one way or another with all of us, so she saw it all, but we went to church every Sunday. We were actually pretty good.
You were a good girl.
We were pretty good.
Okay, what happened to you? Bring us back to the, first of all, the atmosphere on campus. What sort of nutcases were on the campus at the time?
Not really that much. There was one protest that I saw in the year that I was there, and it was something, I hardly even remember it. It was something about marijuana, and I think they got, they got a couple hundred people for. They were firing a law professor, and I think they had 20 students who came to demonstrate, and that was it. There really wasn't a lot of political activity on the campus.
Okay, so the great radical days of 68, 69, 70, that was all gone?
That was gone.
Okay, so what happened to you?
Well, there apparently was some activity in the area, and what had happened was there was a group that called themselves the Symbionese Liberation Army, and what they'd done is they had murdered the superintendent of public schools in Oakland, and nobody could figure out why they had killed him. He was the first black school superintendent, and they had claimed he was a CIA agent, and I mean everything possible, and it was part of a huge conspiracy, and so there was attention focused in the Berkeley, Oakland area looking for this group. And just before I was kidnapped, they caught 2 of the members of the group. And this is what actually triggered my kidnapping, was the arrest of these 2. Well,
were you on a hit list of some kind?
I was on a list. And actually the FBI, when they raided a safe house, found the list, knew about it, had everybody's name who was on the list, and they didn't contact a single person and tell them anything.
So what sort of people were on the list? Were they all rich kids?
It was more than a list. Oh, no, it was more than a list. One was Susan Ford. They had several industrial leaders that lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. And they didn't... With mine, though, they had the actual plans of the kidnapping.
So the FBI knew of this theoretical plan to kidnap you?
They knew. And after I was kidnapped, they called my parents and said, "Oh, gee, we're really sorry." And they said, "But you couldn't have done anything anyway." And my mother said, of course we could have done something. We would have taken her out of school, brought her back to the house, and it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. How were you kidnapped? What happened?
They came into my apartment with machine guns and handguns and, threw me down, blindfolded and gagged me and dragged me out of the apartment and then shot at the neighbors but missed them. But all I could hear at that point was breaking glass and screams.
Okay, what was your reaction to this? I mean, you had never heard of the Symbionese Liberation Army at this point, I'm sure, had you?
Well, I'd heard about. I really didn't read the paper.
Okay.
I just was going to school, and I knew that the murder had taken place in Oakland, but it wasn't until they got me to their safe house and started telling me who they were, and it really wasn't sinking in immediately. But then I started realizing, oh my God, it's this group.
And did you know what they were looking for? I mean, were they looking for a ransom?
Well, if you know what I mean, that's what I was hoping at first, like, oh, good. They just, will ransom me, I'll go home. And then I realized that wasn't what they wanted at all. And it really turned into, an endless, drawn out, first they wanted the release of the two members who had been arrested. Then they wanted food distributed.
And your family actually organized food distribution, didn't they?
They did, but then I forget, they wanted other things. There was never really an end to what they wanted. And in the meantime, they spent the next, 2 months working on me and, telling me that I might have to join them and teaching me all about their beliefs and memorizing all of their they had codes of war, they had names, they had everything.
Okay, now did you decide at that point that you were going to cooperate with them to make life easier, pretend you were going along with them, or did you resist them for any length of time?
Well, I cooperated with them because I had to cooperate with them. If they want to sit there and explain, you see, this was, they were going to educate me because they felt that, anyone they had kidnapped should be educated and be made to understand their beliefs, because they also said that there were hundreds of them and many other people had been kidnapped at the same time that night, and they were being held at other safe houses. So it was quite a while before I knew that I was the only one.
The only one.
But in the meantime, they felt it was, as revolutionaries, it was part of their principles to educate their political prisoner, and that I was a political prisoner the same way that their members who were being held by...
How badly were you mistreated?
Badly.
I mean, what did they do to you?
During the kidnapping, I was hit in the face with a gun and was semi-conscious when I was taken out. And then... I was in this closet, so I was in the dark, also blindfolded, tied up, gagged. Then they got around to their sexual politicizing. So really it was just rape is what it was.
Okay. Did you actually fall for one of them in the end as a result of brainwashing, or did you just acquiesce on the basis that if I acquiesce, I'll get out of this alive?
Well, exactly. I mean, here is your... Because what they felt is that you should have sex with everyone because you should understand how the cell works. And of course, when you're, blindfolded and held in a closet and told you're going to be killed, you're going, oh yeah, great idea. Nobody's saying no to any of this because you don't dare.